Commentators such as yourself and myself and everybody else that aren't aware that the prices are being actively managed almost 24/7.
I want to talk about the silver market first because we've seen silver pick up steam recently, but as always, failing to breach and remain above $35. This has, of course, led to comments that once again, the banking cartel has tamped down the price through mass selling of paper contracts in the futures market. It's also notable to mention that silver looked like it was on its way to $35 before the Liberation Day announcements, when it fell dramatically below $30. So has been staging a recovery since then. What are your current thoughts on the price action in the silver market?
Well, that Monday, that big rally on Monday was all paper trading on the Comex, as you know, and as the buyers came into the market, so the managed money traders and the others that were buying long contracts in the Comex futures market, which is what the act of them doing it is what caused the price to rise. But while they're buying long contracts, somebody has to be prepared to go short against them, because you can't buy a long without a short, and you can't go short without somebody buying the long side. And that's what was happening. As always, it was the collusive commercial banks and some commodity trading houses that were willingly taking the short side of the trades all the way up in price, and then they ended up, capping it out at up 5.3% or whatever. But there was a short for every long. In this case, on Monday and Tuesday combined, the short position increased in silver by 16,000 Comex contracts, which is 80 million ounces of this stuff. And Friday's commitment traders report, I suspect, will show a record commercial net short position in silver, the likes that we've never seen before. And this was just another instance of massive shorting to prevent silver and gold as well from blowing sky high on that particular day. So it's the same old at the moment. And, I'll be able to talk more intelligently about it on Friday once I see that report. But they're still there keeping the lid on the price. But, you've been looking at the price action for the last month or so, and it's just a matter of, how long can they keep this thing contained before it finally does blow, because they can't keep it up forever.
Yeah, very interesting. I had Bob Moriarty on the show recently. He takes a bit of a contrary stance to the allegations of silver manipulation. He said all markets are manipulated. Tell me which markets are not. And he even went as far to say, if people talk about manipulation, it means it's a clear sign they don't know what they're talking about. Now, I'm not trying to create a conflict between yourself and Mr. Moriarty. I greatly enjoy speaking to both of you, but I wonder what your response to that is.
When you sent me the question, I had to laugh out loud, because GATA was formed. The Gold Antitrust Action Committee was formed in around 1999 by Bill Murphy and Chris Powell, and I became actively involved with them several years later. Right from the start, Moriarty dumped on us for years, saying that nobody cared what the price of gold was, certainly not the Federal Reserve, and it wasn't being managed. This went on for, I don't know, at least a decade or more. But finally, as it has dawned on the gold community, is that GATA was right. Rather than admit he was wrong, he just changed his tune to saying that all markets are being managed. And we haven't heard a peep out of him about it in the last 15 years or so. But this is typical of the attitude back then. And there are still some of these so-called precious metal experts, and I'm not going to name names, that deny it vociferously in public, but they know better. And they'll admit to it in private, but they never say it because they have a certain peer group they hang around with, and to admit that they've been wrong for the last quarter of a century is not something they're prepared to do. But nowadays, and there are very few people in the precious metals world, whether it be commentators such as yourself and myself and everybody else, that aren't aware that the prices are being actively managed almost 24/7.
I want to talk about gold for a moment here as well, because it's been performing extremely well, obviously, started to garner some mainstream attention even, although a lot of that mainstream attention is negative. There's been some articles released by a variety of larger mainstream publications saying that, is gold really worth it? More kind of casting doubt on the benefits of owning physical gold, which I find quite interesting. But before we do get to diving deeper into gold, I mean, or into, yeah, I would like to bring up the fact that silver, if gold is woefully underowned by the majority of retail investors in the West, silver is even more so. It's not even on most people's radar screens. What do you think it's going to take for that to shift, and for silver to start getting some attention here, from your man in the street?
Well, let's start off with the gold question first.
Yeah.
Um, as you know, gold has been rising, strongly for the last 6, 8 months. It's really been screaming so far this year, and the sole reason for that. And we've seen lots of gold shipped from London and Switzerland into New York. I mean, everybody's talking about the huge deliveries in the Comex and all this, all the frequent flyer points the gold is picking up between London and New York and Switzerland and New York. But the real reason, and it's fine. I mean, hey, it's great. I mean, we all love it. But the thing is, here is why the gold price rose. And it's for a simple reason. Since the beginning of the year, the commercial traders, the guys that are short the market, okay, and short silver, they have bought back 147,000 gold contracts that they were short, either through delivery or buying back a long contract to cover the short position. Now, 147,000 gold contracts is 14.7 million ounces of the stuff. And when you go into the market and you buy it, whether it be paper or physical, that's going to drive the price higher. And that's called a short covering rally. And that's exactly what we've been having. So that's why the price has gone up. And of course, the result of that is, there's increased demand in the retail market to a certain extent. And now the big hedge funds are starting to get involved. So, it's been a self-fulfilling and, been feeding on, it's a feedback loop that's, really gained momentum. And with the US dollar and everything in the toilet and the talk of war here and the talk of war there and, things going on in the United States government along with Donald Trump and all his big, beautiful bill. I mean, this is all just, throwing gasoline on a fire. So, along with the short covering, the gold's really been on a tear. But as for, and even then, silver is, the amount of gold going into all the world's ETFs and mutual funds is we're at record high price, what, $3,500 in gold right now, and there is less gold in all the world's ETFs and mutual funds and depositories now than there was when gold broke above 2,000 several years ago. So, even in gold, the institutional buying is not there. It has picked up a lot, and I'm sure that'll change over time. But right now, it's not what it was back when gold was 2,000. And why that's the case, I don't know. You don't know, and nobody else knows. I mean, it's been amazing to watch, and everybody's commenting on it, and rightly so. Now, as for silver, that's really different. To get people involved in silver, they're going to have to get involved in gold first. But the thing I've noticed, and I subscribe to Nick Laird's Charter Us website, and I get all my statistics from him. I just commented on the fact that even though gold has not, the amount of gold in all the silver, all the ETFs in the world has not got back to where it was when gold was at $2,000. In silver, it's the opposite. Even though we haven't even got back to 35, let alone 50, the amount of silver that's being deposited in all the world's ETFs and mutual funds and depositories is now back to where it was at its high of about 5 or 6 years ago. So even though, gold hasn't reached that mark yet, silver's already there. So there's been stealth buying in in silver, as we've seen, in the deliveries in New York and amount of silver that's been flowing in from London as well. And we've also had stealth buy. I've been commenting on this in my column for the last couple of weeks now. We have had stealth buying in the silver equities now for the last couple of weeks. And I just noticed on my chart last night that the silver equities are now higher than they've been since back in, I think it was July of 2021. So we have had a huge but quiet move in the silver stocks and in the silver and in the physical silver market that has been that you wouldn't notice unless you knew you could see the charts and see the numbers for yourself, which is what I show in my column. So even though John Q. Public is not involved in the precious metals, this is a big boys game right now. Bullion banks, hedge funds, they are, they've seen they've had their come to Jesus moment, and they're just trying to get out of their short positions as much as they can, mostly through taking delivery on the Comex, which we've seen, and short covering in the Comex futures market and paper. And as I've been saying for several months now, this looks like a giant book squaring operation as they get prepared for even far higher prices in gold and silver than we're looking at right now. It's one of these days, $35 will look like a bargain basement price for silver. And once it breaks through 50, even before it gets through 40, I'm sure the public will be involved and we'll be off to the races. But right now we're in the slowly at first. The suddenly part is yet to come.
Wow, a lot to unpack there. I want to pull on the thread of short covering when it comes to gold's price appreciation. You're saying a lot of that is due to short covering. And you also mentioned that they're trying these bullion banks and bigger players are trying to get out of their short positions. Do you think that reckoning has come when it comes to the gold market, at least? Do you think that those who have been shorting gold in a big way have woken up? You said there's a come to Jesus moment. Have they now looked at gold's price appreciation, basically going straight up? I mean, at least since around September of 2023, have they been looking at this and telling themselves, hey, I don't think this is a game we want to play anymore? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, they've been heading for the exits quietly for a long time, but now it's really picked up a lot of steam. And like I said, this has been a big short covering rally since the beginning of the year. They've either been covering their paper shorts by going long, by buying long contracts, or those that are short, or I mean, so those that are long, so, and they've got the money. Says they look at around the world and they say, man, the U.S. dollar's heading down the drain. Everything's heading down the drain. We're not interested in holding paper gold anymore. We want the real stuff. So those that are long, and they're taking delivery of tens of thousands of contracts worth. Those that are long are ponying up the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars that they're long, and saying, look, and telling the shorts, okay, we want delivery. Give us the gold. Okay, that's exactly what's happening. They're out there squaring their books, and they said, we don't want to hold paper longs anymore. We want the physical in hand, which is what the retail guys are doing too. I mean, we've been doing this. Your listeners, you, me, and everybody else has been stacking this stuff for what, years? I've been doing it since 1999. So, I've been around this business for a while. So now the big boys are starting to stack the stuff. China, Russia, Iran, Poland, whatever. You pick a country. They've been stacking this stuff, and hey, they're people just like you and I, and they can see the writing on the wall. So, this is the start. The guys in gold, the big boys, know this is going to come to an end. So they're just taking the same precautions that just you and I are doing, except they're doing it on massive scales and massive amounts of money.